I sat alone in my small apartment staring at the grocery store birthday cake still in its plastic container. The 28 candles remained untouched in their box. My phone had stayed silent all day. This was the third year in a row my parents had forgotten my birthday, but something felt different this time. Instead of tears, I felt a strange numbness settling over me. The familiar sting of disappointment was there, but underneath it something else was growing. A quiet determination I had never felt before. Before we dive into what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from today. If you have ever felt overlooked or undervalued by your own family, please hit that like button. And make sure to subscribe because what my father sent me a week later will absolutely shock you. Trust me, you will want to see how the story unfolds. Looking back, I should have seen this pattern building for years. 3 birthdays in a row, 3 years of being an afterthought in my own family. The first time it happened, I was 25 and fresh out of college. I had been so excited thinking my parents would finally throw me a real celebration now that I was officially an adult in the working world. Instead, I spent that day watching social media posts of my parents and my older brother Jason living it up at some luxury ski resort in Aspen. They had planned the trip months in advance, apparently completely forgetting that March 15th was my birthday. When I called that evening, Mom sounded genuinely surprised. "Oh, sweetie, we totally lost track of dates up here in the mountains. The snow is just incredible. We will celebrate when we get back." Of course, by the time they returned, Jason had some work crisis that needed their immediate attention. The second year was somehow worse. Jason was graduating from his MBA program at Northwestern, and naturally the ceremony fell on the same weekend as my birthday. Not the same day, mind you, but the same weekend. That was apparently close enough for my parents to justify flying to Chicago and spending 4 days celebrating their golden boy, while I sat in my apartment with a bottle of wine and a cheese plate from Trader Joe's. I had invited a few co-workers over, trying to make the best of it, but the whole time I kept checking my phone hoping for a call that never came. The text message I received at 11:30 that night was brief. "So sorry, honey, the graduation festivities ran late. Jason got an amazing job offer. We are so proud. Love you." No mention of my actual birthday. No acknowledgement that I had spent another year getting older while they were busy celebrating someone else. But this third year, felt like the final straw. Jason had just purchased a massive new house in Manhattan Beach, one of those modern, minimalist places with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a price tag that made my monthly rent look like pocket change. Apparently, he needed help moving in and getting settled, which required both of my parents to drop everything and spend the entire week playing house with their favorite child. I knew this because Carol had called me 3 days before my birthday to cancel our standing lunch date, explaining breathlessly how Jason just could not handle the stress of moving without family support. So there I was, 28 years old, eating a slice of vanilla cake from Whole Foods, while scrolling through Instagram stories of my mother arranging furniture and my father assembling some ridiculously expensive exercise equipment in Jason's new home gym. The irony was not lost on me that they had more energy for building IKEA furniture than they did for remembering the day I was born. The phone call came just as I was getting ready for bed. Carol's voice sounded tired, that particular kind of exhaustion that comes from a day of manual labor mixed with family drama. "Oh, Miranda, honey, I'm so sorry. We got completely caught up helping Jason with the house. You know how overwhelming moving can be, and he was just so stressed about getting everything perfect before he starts his new position next week." I could hear my father in the background, and suddenly he was on speakerphone too. "We will make it up to you next weekend, sweetheart. Maybe we can do that new brunch place you mentioned." His voice had that same hollow quality it always took on when he was trying to smooth over something he knew was wrong but did not want to fully acknowledge. I listened to them make their excuses, the same tired explanations I had heard 2 years running. But for the first time, I did not feel that familiar urge to cry or to tell them it was okay. Instead, I felt something I'd never experienced before: complete emotional detachment. It was like watching actors perform a scene I had seen too many times before. "Sure, Dad. Next weekend sounds fine." The words came out flat, emotionless. I did not even try to inject any warmth or understanding into my voice. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I think they expected more of a reaction. Either tears or anger, or at least some guilt tripping about how hurt I was. Instead, they got nothing. After we hung up, I made a decision that surprised even me. I did not respond to the follow-up text. When Carol sent me a photo of a beautiful flower arrangement the next morning with a message about how she had ordered it for me, but it would be delivered late due to some florist error, I simply read it and set my phone aside. When Jason sent his typical "Happy birthday, sis," Sorry we missed it, but the house stuff was crazy. Text, I left it on read. For the first time in my adult life, I was not going to pretend that their behavior was acceptable. I was not going to smile and nod and tell them that family comes first, and I understood their priorities. Because the truth was becoming crystal clear, I had never been their priority, and I was tired of pretending otherwise. The week that followed was the longest period I had ever gone without talking to my family. Normally, I would call my mother every few days, text my father random articles I thought he might find interesting, and exchange memes with Jason about work, stress, and dating disasters. But this time, I let my phone stay silent. I threw myself into work at the small marketing firm where I managed social media accounts for local restaurants and retail stores. It was not the most glamorous job, but it paid my bills and gave me something to focus on besides the growing realization that my family had been taking me for granted for years. I thought I was handling the silence pretty well. I was sleeping better, eating regular meals, and had even started taking evening walks around my neighborhood instead of scrolling through social media, looking at other people's seemingly perfect family relationships. For the first time in months, I felt like I was taking care of myself instead of constantly worrying about when my parents would remember I existed. Then Monday morning arrived with the email that changed everything. I was sitting at my desk with my usual coffee and bagel, scanning through client updates and preparing for a meeting about a new restaurant launch. My personal email was usually pretty quiet during work hours, so when I saw a message from my father's law firm address, I assumed it was probably some family logistics thing. Maybe details about a holiday gathering or a reminder about my grandmother's birthday next month. The subject line read, "Invoice, Jason's birthday celebration." I stared at those words for a full 30 seconds before clicking open the email. The message inside was brief and businesslike, exactly the tone my father used with his clients. "Miranda, as discussed, we are splitting family celebration costs evenly. Your share, $2,200. Please transfer by end of week. Thanks, Dad." Attached was a PDF invoice that looked like it had been professionally prepared. The header read, "Thompson Family Celebrations, LLC," which would have been funny if I were not so stunned. Below that was a detailed breakdown of expenses for something called Jason Thompson 30th Birthday Yacht Celebration. I scrolled through the itemized list with growing disbelief. Yacht rental from Marina del Rey, $2,500. Catering from some upscale company I had never heard of, $800. Premium champagne and wine service, $600. Professional photographer, $300. Custom decorations and floral arrangements, $200. The total came to exactly $4,400. At the bottom of the invoice in the notes section, my father had written, "Costs split evenly between family members as previously agreed upon." I read that line over and over again. As previously agreed upon. When exactly had this conversation taken place? I tried to remember any discussion about Jason's birthday, any mention of a yacht party, any suggestion that I would be financially responsible for an event I had not even known was happening. The more I thought about it, the more the timeline became clear. They had planned this elaborate celebration for Jason during the same week they were too busy helping him move to remember my birthday. Not only had they chosen to prioritize his special day over mine, but they had spent more on his single party than I made in 2 months. And now they wanted me to pay for the privilege of being excluded. I printed out the invoice and stared at it, feeling something shift inside me. My coworker Sarah walked by my desk and saw the papers in my hand. "Everything okay? You look like you have seen a ghost." I held up the invoice without saying anything. Sarah leaned over to read it, her eyes getting wider as she scanned the details. "Wait, is this real? They want you to pay for a party you were not even invited to?" That was the moment it hit me. I had not just been forgotten or overlooked. I had been deliberately excluded from a major family celebration, and then billed for it after the fact. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. "Sarah," I said slowly, "I think my family just made the biggest mistake of their lives." For the first time in a week, I smiled. But it was not the kind of smile that came from happiness. It was the kind of smile that came from finally understanding exactly where you stood with people and knowing exactly what you were going to do about it. I spent the rest of that Monday in a strange state of clarity I had never experienced before. The hurt and confusion from the past 3 years seemed to crystallize into something much more powerful: determination. For 28 years, I had been the accommodating daughter, the understanding sister, the family member who always bent over backward to keep the peace. But this invoice was not just a bill. It was a declaration of exactly how my family saw me: as a convenient source of funding for the people they actually cared about. I left work early that day, and stopped at my bank. I opened my checkbook for the first time in months and carefully wrote out a check for exactly $1. In the memo line, I wrote my contribution to Jason's yacht party. I am not on board with this anymore. Miranda. I took a photo of the check with my phone and sent it to my father with a simple message: payment sent as requested. Then I drove to the post office and mailed the physical check to his law firm address, the same way he had sent me the invoice. If he wanted to treat this like a business transaction, I could play that game. But I was just getting started. That evening, I sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop and a notepad. I started making a list of every single thing my parents had access to that I was paying for. The list was longer than I had realized. Netflix account $15 per month. I had added them to my plan 3 years ago, when they were complaining about the cost of streaming services. Spotify Family, plan $16 per month. They loved having access to all their old music without commercials. Adobe Creative Suite, $53 per month. My father used Photoshop for some hobby photography project he had been working on for years. Amazon Prime, $139 per year. They ordered everything through my account because they liked the free shipping. HBO Max, $15 per month. My mother was obsessed with some British drama series. Disney Plus, $8 per month. They claimed they wanted it to watch shows with potential future grandchildren, but mostly they used it for Marvel movies. But the biggest surprise was the credit card situation. 3 years ago, when I'd been building my credit score, my father had suggested adding him and my mother as authorized users on my American Express card. It will help build your credit history faster, he had said, and we hardly ever use credit cards anyway. What he had not mentioned was that authorized users could build points on the account that could be transferred to their personal travel rewards. For 3 years, they had been making purchases and building up airline miles and hotel points that I never even knew existed. I logged into every single one of these accounts and began the process of removing access. Netflix was first. I changed the password and removed all their devices from the authorized list. Spotify was next, followed by Adobe, Amazon, and all the other streaming services. Each time I hit the save button, I felt a little bit lighter. The credit card took longer. I had to call American Express directly and explain that I wanted to remove the authorized users from my account. The customer service representative was helpful but confused. Just to confirm you want to remove both authorized users, they will lose access to the account immediately, and any pending transactions may be declined. Yes, I said firmly. Remove them both, effective immediately. Okay, that has been processed. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Actually, yes. I want to know about any rewards points or miles that have been accumulated on this account. There was a pause while she looked up my information. Oh wow, you have quite a substantial balance. 47,000 points in our travel program and 62,000 airline miles with Delta. Would you like me to walk you through how to redeem those? I almost laughed out loud. 47,000 points. They had been using my credit card to accumulate rewards for years, and I'd never even thought to check. Can I transfer all of those points to my personal accounts? Absolutely. Since you are the primary card holder, you have complete control over all rewards and points. By the time I hung up, I had transferred every single point and mile to my own personal travel accounts. If they wanted to take expensive vacations and throw lavish parties, they could do it without my inadvertent sponsorship. My phone started ringing around 6 p.m. Carol's name flashed on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Then Richard called. Then Jason. Then Carol again. I ignored them all and went to the gym instead. When I got home an hour later, I had 17 missed calls and 12 text messages. I poured myself a glass of wine and finally listened to the voicemails. Carol's voice was frantic. Miranda! Something is wrong with all our accounts. Netflix is not working and my music stopped in the middle of my workout. Call me back right away. Richard sounded angry. Miranda, I do not know what kind of childish game you think you are playing, but you need to call me immediately. This is completely unacceptable behavior. Jason's message was the most telling. Dude, seriously? You are acting like a spoiled brat over a birthday party. It is just money. Stop being so dramatic and fix whatever you broke. I deleted all the voicemails without responding. Instead, I sent one group text to all 3 of them. I am practicing family cost sharing as you suggested. Effective immediately, I will be managing my own expenses independently. I hope you understand. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the entire night without waking up. The next few days were a blur of increasingly desperate messages from my family. They tried calling my work number, which I refused to answer. They sent emails to my personal account, which I marked as read, but did not respond to. Carol even showed up at my apartment building, but I happened to be out getting groceries and missed her completely. By Friday, their tactics had escalated. I came home from work to find my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, waiting for me in the lobby. "Honey, your mother called me. She's worried sick about you. She said you have not been answering your phone for days." I smiled politely. "I am fine, Mrs. Patterson. Just taking some time to sort out family finances. Thank you for checking on me." That weekend, I decided to treat myself to something I'd been wanting to do for months. I used some of the airline miles I just acquired to book a last-minute trip to San Diego. Nothing fancy, just a weekend at a nice hotel near the beach where I could think clearly about what I wanted my life to look like going forward. I was checking out of my hotel Sunday morning when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I did not recognize, which was weird because I usually let unknown calls go to voicemail. But something made me answer. "Is this Miranda Thompson?" "Yes, this is Miranda. This is Jennifer from the fraud department at Bank of America. We have detected some unusual activity on your credit report and wanted to verify some information with you." I felt my stomach drop. "What kind of activity?" "Someone attempted to open a Capital One credit card account using your social security number and date of birth yesterday evening. The application was flagged because the address on file did not match our records for your current residence. We wanted to confirm that you did not initiate this application." I sat down heavily in the hotel lobby chair. "No, I definitely did not apply for any new credit cards." "I see. Do you have any reason to believe someone in your family might have access to your personal information?" And there it was. My parents had gotten so desperate to regain access to credit cards and streaming services that they had tried to open a new account using my information. The same people who had raised me, who had taught me about honesty and integrity, had attempted to commit identity fraud because I had stopped paying for their entertainment. "Yes," I said quietly. "I think I know exactly who did this." The drive back from San Diego gave me 3 hours to think about how I wanted to handle this final betrayal. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I called my family that evening and asked them to meet me for dinner the next day. For the first time in 2 weeks, they all agreed immediately. I could hear the relief in their voices. They probably thought I was ready to apologize and restore their access to all the services they had grown accustomed to. We met at a quiet restaurant downtown, the kind of place where serious conversations could happen without being overheard. I arrived first and watched them walk in together. Richard in his expensive suit, Carol carrying the designer handbag I had given her for Christmas, and Jason wearing the watch they had bought him with their yacht party money. "Miranda." Carol rushed over to hug me. "We have been so worried about you. You just disappeared." I hugged her back but kept my expression neutral. "I've been doing some thinking about our family finances." Richard leaned forward. "Look, if this is about the invoice for Jason's party, we can work out a payment plan. I realize $2,000 might be a stretch for you right now." "Actually, Dad, it is about more than just the party." I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app where I had prepared what I wanted to say. "It is about the credit card application you submitted using my social security number." The table went completely silent. Carol's face went pale and Richard looked like he had been caught in a lie during a deposition. "Miranda, we can explain," he started, but I held up my hand. "Bank of America called me yesterday. They flagged the application as potential fraud. I could file a police report right now and have you both arrested for identity theft." I let that sink in for a moment. "But I'm not going to do that because despite everything, you are still my parents." Jason finally spoke up. "Come on, this is getting way out of hand. We are family. Families help each other out." "You are absolutely right, Jason. Families do help each other out." I looked around the table. "That is why I'm confused about why I have been helping you all financially for years while being treated like an afterthought when it comes to important family events." I pulled out the printed copies of all the streaming service bills, the credit card statements showing their purchases, and the travel rewards summary, showing the points they had accumulated. "For 3 years, I have been paying for your entertainment, your online shopping, and inadvertently funding your vacations through credit card rewards. During that same time, you have missed every single one of my birthdays while throwing elaborate celebrations for Jason." Carol started to cry. "Honey, we never meant for it to feel like we were taking advantage, but that is exactly what you were doing. And when I finally stood up for myself, your first instinct was not to apologize or try to make things right. Your first instinct was to commit fraud." Richard looked defeated in a way I had never seen before. "What do you want from us, Miranda?" I want you to understand that I'm not your personal bank account or your backup plan when you need extra money. I am your daughter. And if you want to have a relationship with me going forward, it needs to be based on actual love and respect, not financial convenience. I stood up from the table. I'm not asking you to pay me back for anything you have already used. Consider it a gift. But from now on, you will pay for your own streaming services, your own credit cards, and your own yacht parties. And if you ever use my personal information for anything again, I will not hesitate to involve the police. Jason started to protest, but Richard put a hand on his arm. She is right, he said quietly. We messed up. We have been messing up for years. I left the restaurant that night feeling something I had not experienced in a long time in peace. Not happiness exactly, but a calm certainty that I had finally stood up for myself in a way that mattered. The weeks that followed were not easy. My parents called regularly to apologize and try to rebuild our relationship. Jason took longer to come around, but eventually sent me a text acknowledging that they had treated me unfairly. Slowly, very slowly, we began to have conversations that felt more balanced and genuine. I started spending my free time differently. Instead of constantly checking my phone for family updates or worrying about their approval, I signed up for a pottery class. I started cooking elaborate meals for myself instead of just grabbing takeout. I even began dating again, something I had avoided for months, because I was always so stressed about family drama. The most surprising development came 3 months later. Carol called to invite me to lunch, just the two of us, and when we met, she handed me an envelope. What is this? It is a check for $1,100, she said. Half of what we asked you to pay for Jason's party. I know you said we did not need to pay you back, but it was wrong to ask you to contribute to an event you were not even invited to. I looked at the check and then at my mother. Mom, you do not have to do this. Yes, I do. And so does your father. We raised you to be independent and strong, but somewhere along the way, we started treating you like you existed for our convenience. That stops now. 6 months after the yacht party invoice, I got an invitation in the mail. It was for Jason's housewarming party scheduled for the weekend after my 29th birthday. At the bottom in handwriting, I recognized as Carol's was a note. We would love to celebrate your birthday at the party too, if you would like. Or we can plan something separate just for you. Your choice. For the first time in years, I felt like they were actually asking what I wanted, instead of telling me what they had decided was convenient for everyone else. I chose to have my own birthday celebration the weekend before his party. Nothing fancy, just dinner with the friends I'd been neglecting while I was so focused on family drama. Carol and Richard came and they brought thoughtful gifts they had clearly put time into choosing. Richard gave me a beautiful leather-bound journal with my initials embossed on the cover. Carol brought a framed photo of the two of us from my college graduation, something I had never seen before. I found this when I was organizing some old files, she said. You looked so happy that day, and I realize we have not been taking enough pictures together lately. That $1 check taught me the most expensive lesson of my life, and it was worth every penny. Sometimes the people who love you need to be reminded that love is not a one-way street. Sometimes you have to stop giving so much of yourself that there is nothing left for people to value. And sometimes the best thing you can do for a relationship is to walk away until the other person realizes what they are about to lose. If you have ever felt taken for granted by the people who should value you most, let me know in the comments what you did about it. Did you stand up for yourself, or are you still trying to figure out how? Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice in difficult family situations. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their feelings matter and their boundaries deserve respect. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve to be treated with the same kindness and consideration that you show others. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.